So we will get started with the session. And before we jump into the content, I did want to share a little bit about myself. So my pronouns are she, her, hers. As I mentioned, I am a PFF fellow and really fortunate to be part of our team. And I'm also a doctoral student at the School of Community and Global Health with a focus on leadership and management. And I'm also assistant director of leadership equity for the California Primary Care Association. The picture that you see on your screen is some of our team, and the work that I do is really focused around leadership development and really thinking about leadership development in the form of place, and really thinking about place-based strategies when it comes to developing leaders. I was also raised in the Coachella Valley and currently reside in Riverside in the land of Tongava or Gabrieleño. And I also wanted just to take a moment, since it was Cesar Chavez's official holiday yesterday. So I did want to take a moment to recognize and commemorate Cesar Chavez and his dedication to social justice, and in honor of farm workers and their contribution to the well-being of our agricultural communities like the Coachella Valley, which is a picture that you see at the very bottom corner, which is near and dear to me because it's my hometown. So with that, I again welcome all of you, and I hope today's session is helpful in kind of our focus around place-based pedagogies. In deciding to kind of talk about this topic, I decided to kind of merge two different themes. So we will talk about place-based pedagogies, but I also would like to talk about experiential learning and how these two different forms of learning are important to purposefully engage with students in direct experience and reflection, and really thinking about opportunities of integrating place in learning. So we'll explore that. We'll also discuss how place-based and experiential approaches can support students in their learning and leadership development. We'll apply principles to think about how these apply to student-centered experiences by doing, reflecting, and applying. And then also think about just opportunities that you may have in really thinking about place-based pedagogies to support student learning environments and inclusive environments, as well as growth mindset. And I do see a couple comments in the chat. Actually, I think that was just a private reminder for me to record this session. So Holly, would you mind just making sure we're recording? I believe we are.
Yes, I started the recording.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So before we jump right in, I do want to take a quick moment to start with just a reflection question. And the reflection questions are two, so you're welcome to respond to two or just to one. And the first one is to think about or reflect on, what does place mean to you? And the second one is, why is it important to consider in learning and leadership development? So I welcome you all to take a minute to think about that. If you want to write some comments in the chat or write some comments for yourself. And I'll give you all a minute, and then we can come back together and share some of our thoughts on that. So I'll give you all a minute to think about that. Great. I see a nice comment from A. Alcatraz. I'm not sure what your first name is, but really appreciate your comment on defining place. Anita, thank you, Anita. As a real life situation similar to a job I want to do. It's a great definition. Any other thoughts from folks? You're welcome to unmute yourself or write any thoughts in the chat. And as you all keep thinking about this, I'll share some reflections that I have on place. So when we think about place and learning, it's really an opportunity to connect people to the places that they identify with, and to help create awareness in the importance that these places have on their own lives. So it really helps support in a lot of different opportunities for learning and leadership development, because students in research have shown that they become more invested in their projects. They can relate to real places that they're connected to, and it's really an opportunity to really center them in opportunities that that really influence their own understanding of the world, of their own understanding of how they apply it to their own learning, and really as partly an opportunity for experience, which is where the term experiential learning comes from. And I do see another comment in the chat from Dong. So Dong shared a location in a classroom, a cognition level. That's a great comment, Dong. So it's definitely can be a physical location, or it can also be a location that's cognitive to you, that you can kind of move to in terms of your mind and thinking about a place. With place-based learning, you may have heard about it for the younger students and kind of younger generation, as really moving the classroom outside of the physical classroom location. But there's definitely a lot of opportunities to think about place also within the classroom, but really moving students to opportunities where they can apply their learning outside of the classroom. So appreciate those comments. Just for the sake of time, we'll move on to our next activity here, which is a short video. So I'm going to try playing this video. Hopefully it works. If you can't hear my audio, please let me know, but we'll try to give it a shot and see if this works. Quick start guide to place-based education from a website called Getting Smart. And it's included in the resources, but the key themes that they highlight is thinking about local to global contexts, where we think about the communities as learning ecosystems, where it's either regional or local experts and experiences that bring in an expanded definition of the classroom. We also think about community as a classroom and really looking at local learning models for understanding challenges and opportunities and connections. There's a big emphasis on making sure it's learner-centered, that learning is personally relevant to students, and that it enables student agency. They also highlight the fact that place-based learning is very interdisciplinary. So when you think about place, there's all types of disciplines that are represented. So in thinking about place, you really bring in additional subject matter areas and skills, and really taking a project-based approach when it comes to learning and really integrating a variety of different disciplines. It's also inquiry-based, meaning that it's grounded in observing, asking questions, making predictions, and collecting information to understand the world from an economic, ecological, or socio-political level. And it also offers opportunities for design thinking, in that it provides systemic approaches for students to make meaningful impact in their communities throughout the curriculum. So I see a couple comments in the chat. Anita, I think it's important to create a community and team, and the place can help. Great comment. Elisa, liked the video. That she reflected on her own experiences with place, like the building, and that she didn't feel like it fit her, and didn't help, and it didn't help her creativity to thrive. Recommended a book. So really appreciate your comments there, Lisa. And great. So I hope this was all helpful for you all. I wanted to share one other slide, which is a graphic that I really liked that kind of covers all the different benefits of place-based education. So I won't go through all of these in detail, but did want to highlight a couple. So some of the benefits of place-based learning is that it is grounded in local communities and contexts. Another here is that students can be challenged to see the world through a systems level, really thinking about ecological, political, economic, and social lenses and layers. That students' experience is student-centered and personalized, that students have more agency and autonomy to boost their motivation and persistence to learning, that it can be very relevant and engaging because there are places that may be more relevant for the student. As I mentioned earlier, it offers opportunities for design thinking. It can also, a big highlight here is that it can meet deeper learning outcomes for students. So there's really an opportunity to do deeper reflection and applications, therefore meeting higher levels of learning outcomes that are more on the level of applying and creating content. And then they can be inquiry-based and interdisciplinary, and that it's really student-centered. So there's a lot of different benefits to place-based learning. And I wanted to just kind of share a couple just more kind of historical reasons on learning and thinking about experiential learning and place-based learning. And some that I want to highlight is just the fact that it's really focused on learning by doing. You know, just a couple quotes from figures in history. I always forget how to pronounce his name. Conspicuous. One quote that I like is, "I hear and I forget, I see, I remember, I do, and I understand." Another one by Benjamin Franklin is, "Tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I will learn." And then John Dewey, who is popularized the concept of experiential education, really looked at the way of looking at learning as focusing on problem solving and critical thinking, and that he highlights that there is an intimate and necessary relation between the process of actual experience and education. So this is kind of really moving us into thinking about experiential learning and how this also connects to student learning and applied learning. And for those of you who are newer to experiential learning, it is a philosophy and a methodology in which educators purposely engage with students in direct experiences and really focus on reflection in order to increase knowledge, develop skills, and clarify values. And this is from the Association of Experiential Education. So it's really focused around learning through action, learning through doing, learning through experience, and learning through discovery and exploration. And one very popular model that you'll see or theory that you'll see in experiential learning is the David Kolb's theory on experiential learning, in which he proposes that there's basically that it's critical in development of knowledge construction, that learning occurs through discovery and application. So there is a process in which there is transformation in experience. So this model basically describes two parts of learning. The first is that there's basically like a 4-stage cycle that you see here. The first one is really thinking about the concrete experience of doing and having an experience. And then secondly is reflecting on that observation, opportunities for reviewing and reflecting on the experience. Then there's the next kind of phase where you have abstract conceptualization, including learning from the experience. And then lastly, the fourth phase is active experimenting and planning and trying out what was learned. So the cycle, according to Kolb, he believed that ideally learners process through these stages and to complete the cycle are transformed in their experiences into knowledge that is more long-term. So those are some key highlights. And essentially, Kolb believed that individuals could transform their knowledge or the learning that occurred when they're able to apply abstract concepts to actual situations. So feel free to send some comments if you all don't have, or questions, if you have any questions to this theory. I just wanted to also highlight some reasons why this is important. So in one book that I recommend called Teaching for Experiential Learning, found that one of the main reasons why experiential learning is so important is because, and this is a little outdated, so this is from 2010, but at that time they found that most college faculty only teach by lecturing. A big takeaway from this book is that they encourage for faculty to move beyond lectures and to really actively involve students in the learning process through experiential learning. That can include discussions, group work, hands-on participation, and other ways of applying information outside the classroom in learning. And they also mention how students can be more motivated to learn when they have a personal stake or a subject rather than being assigned a topic or chapter or lecture to process. So did want to highlight a couple opportunities and that we see quite often in higher education when it comes to applied learning. Again, these may not specifically apply to your work, but this is really where we kind of see experiential learning as opportunity. These come in apprenticeships, capstone projects, fellowships, field work, internships, service learning, student teaching, so TA positions, just study abroad positions, volunteer work. So although these are the common ones, you can also really look at experiential learning and opportunities in actual classroom spaces. So really thinking about ways to use discussions, storyboards, role playing, team-based approaches, and also development of independent projects. And just wanted to highlight a couple additional elements that we think about in terms of the process of experiential learning. So it's really designed to engage students in direct experiences that are tied to real world problems. It's also an opportunity to cooperate and learn from one another in a more semi-structured approach. So there's really more fluidity in the classroom and more opportunities for dialogue. And students also become a way to really identify situations and challenges through problem solving, cooperation, and collaboration. There's definitely a lot of opportunities and benefits. And I did want to now just kind of highlight some of the kind of nuts and bolts of ways to implement experiential learning. So this is following some information from Haynes and UC Davis that really kind of break down the steps into first, number one, you think about the doing piece, so experiencing and exploring what is specifically the student doing. Then opportunities for sharing and reflecting what happened as a result of this experience or doing. Then we move into processing and analyzing as to why it's important. And then we think about generalizing. So why is this? So what happened? Why is it important? How does this apply to you? How does this apply to kind of the subject matter of the content that's being discussed? And then application, which is the now what. So I wanted to share one more video, and I see my screen is blank. So let me try. I'm going to stop share and reshare this. One quick second. Holly, would you mind resending me that link so I could reshare that video?
No
If you
problem.
don't mind. While we're gonna share a screen, let me check out the chat. Anita liked the quote. Oh, perfect, Anita. Thank you for sharing this quote from Herbert Simon. Learning results from what the student does and thinks, and only from what the student does and thinks. The teacher can advance learning only by influencing the student to learn. This is an excellent quote, Anita. Thank you for sharing that. All right, so we are going to now try to play this video, see if this works. Of your own roles and opportunities that you lead. So wanted to just offer some time for folks, if you have any reflections, kind of thoughts as far as how this video and kind of how this may apply specifically to you. Just wanted to offer that time for folks to share. Any thoughts? I know it's end of day Friday, so you're welcome to just kind of take this information and run with it later next week when we have a little bit more energy. But I hope this was helpful for you all in really understanding how experiential learning can really support in development and leadership development. I see a question from Anita. Jenny mentioned, thank you for the session, great information. Did you get the name of who she mentioned about what makes people most effective? What makes people effective learn? Anita, I think it's a good question. I did not get the name. Oh, actually, I think she was referring to Colt, who is the slide earlier and kind of thinking about the theory of experiential learning. I think if that's your question, it's the way that they approach kind of their role play and ways that they apply experiential learning is informed by David Colt. So I believe that's a person that was mentioned. And I did include in the slide deck, there is information about his theory, and I believe there's an article on it as well. Does that answer your question? Yeah, okay, perfect. Awesome. So we have about 15 minutes. I wanted to take a couple more minutes to just kind of summarize a couple things. So let me go back to my slides. Okay, so you should see like a colorful visual in front of your screen. Holly, is that what I'm sharing right now?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so did want to just highlight one other kind of just really useful tool that I took from the Northern Illinois University Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning that kind of talk about the different stages in experiential learning. So they kind of break this down into plan, prepare, facilitate, and evaluate. So these are kind of more some tangible ways to think about applied experiential learning. So for plan, you really think about the experience by tying it to your course learning objectives. Then the second stage is to prepare your materials. So before the session or before that applied learning, experiential learning begins, you want to think about what materials, rubrics, assessment tools you need to ensure that you have everything ready for the experience to begin. And then there's really an important need to facilitate. So although research shows that you want to kind of do a semi-structured approach, there is also just an opportunity to facilitate and guide students through the process and finding ways to determine solutions themselves. And then as always important, we want to evaluate kind of how this went for students. And we can do this through discussions, reflections, and debriefing after the session. So just to kind of provide a little bit more detail, so the first stage plan, we think about what students will need to successfully complete the exercise, how much time will be allotted to complete the exercise. So it can be completed by the end of class, it could take more time, about a week. What will students need to work outside of, will students need to work outside of the class? This can be particularly important when we think about place-based pedagogies and whether students actually need to be outside of their classroom. What forms of assessments will you employ? Are there specific assessments that you want to use? So some popular ones is looking at observations or journals, which can be formative work. How will the experience end? So what specifically do we want to capture at the end of the experience? It can be in the form of a report, project, presentation, a peer assessment, or even a combination of a couple of these. So these are some things that you want to think about when planning it. As far as preparing, you want to think about your materials, your rubric, your assessment tools to ensure that you're ready before the experience begins. And then you want to make sure to have some opportunities for facilitation. So once you begin, you want to refrain from providing students with all the content or answers, because really the opportunity in learning is for students to apply themselves and to really find ways using inquiry-based approach to determine solutions for themselves. So there is a need for facilitation, but there's also an opportunity to also offer some unstructured time for students to explore and find solutions. And lastly is to evaluate. So you want to think about how you want to evaluate this. So you can think about discussions, reflections, debrief with the students who are within your classroom space. And debriefing is really great because it can give you information on kind of the cumulative experience and also reinforce the learning process. And you can also think of other assessment strategies and kind of planning this out. So lastly, I wanted to just provide a couple concluding thoughts. So experiential learning and place-based pedagogies definitely support students in many levels. It could be for career development, it could be for professional development. It also offers applied opportunities to reinforce content and theory that can be very grounding and important in the course, but really re-emphasizes students to apply it and really reach kind of higher levels of learning targets or learning outcomes. It's also a really great opportunity for students to learn through student rather than instructor-centered experiences by doing, discovering, and reflecting. And also through these experiences, students develop a lot of great skills. They can develop interpersonal skills, communication skills, leadership skills by really responding and solving problems for communities or places that they connect with. And so I'll leave you all with that. We have about 10 minutes left, so I wanted to offer one more reflection time. So I wanted to give folks about a minute to think about if anything specifically resonated with you today, if anything that was discussed today is new or surprising, and if there's anything from today's session that you want to learn more about or apply within your space. And I do encourage you all to write your comments in the chat. I'd be really excited to hear about them, or you're also welcome to unmute yourself and share those. So I'll give you all about a minute to do that. And you're welcome to share your comments in the chat if you would like. Now you don't have to wait a minute to do that. Does anyone have anything specifically that they would like to share as far as something that has resonated with you? I see a comment from Elisa. As a teacher, I have always used place-based learning, especially in science and gardening. It's nice to learn more about the theory behind it. Yeah, thank you, Elisa. I'm glad this was informative for you. And yeah, but definitely there's a lot of good theory and research behind it, I would say, and definitely opportunities to do this type of learning in many different spaces. So really appreciate the way that you've applied it in your own teaching and spaces. Any other comments from folks? And you're welcome to respond to any of these questions. It doesn't have to be the one about resonating. It might be something that was new to you or surprising, or something that you would like to learn more about. Anita would like to know more about pedagogy. It's a great one, Anita. I think there's definitely a lot of opportunity for us to learn about kind of how this actually works and thinking about it from a pedagogy perspective. So really appreciate you sharing that comment. Any other comments or even questions? If anyone has questions, we do have time for questions at the end, but if you have questions about these questions, we can talk about that as well. Right, so I'll let you all kind of think about these questions again. I know there's a lot of content in here, so hopefully this was helpful for you, and hopefully there's some direct applications that you could use within your work. I do want to take the last minutes to just do a couple just kind of closing slides. So if we could launch, I'm going to launch our poll. So do really appreciate your time today and hope you can take this quick poll for us. This helps us really get some feedback from you and really kind of crafting our next session. So I'm going to launch this now. You all could respond to those. And just making sure, Holly, you did see that launch already, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we'll give folks another minute. Right, I'm gonna close the poll now. If you are entering your response, I'll give everyone a couple more seconds to wrap up, and then I'll close our poll. So hopefully this was enough time for everyone. Appreciate your feedback. Just wanted to kind of take the last minutes to just a couple of reminders. So we do have opportunity for you to make an appointment with us. So we have a scheduling website where you are very welcome to make an appointment with any of us, including our fellows, to discuss anything you would like to talk about. It could be your teaching philosophy statement. It could be just opportunities to soundboard or get some feedback from us on ways that you are developing your own teaching and leadership within many different spaces that that PFF can support you in. I also want to remind folks that we have a LinkedIn page that you are welcome to join. It's called Ethical Pedagogy Community, and it's a really great space that Holly is awesome at helping us manage, that includes just different opportunities and resources that everyone is welcome to access and share. We also have 2 upcoming webinars that one is coming up next Saturday called The Best Teaching Advice I Received. What was it and how was it and how to implement it? And that's going to be hosted by Noah Ringler, who's also a PFF fellow. And then I'll be doing a session at the end of this month to talk about linkages between adult learning and leadership development. And lastly, Holly should have sent, I think she did already, a link to our, yes, thank you, Holly. So this, Holly included our Linktree link, which includes basically how to find all of our links for PFF. So you can take a look at those. I also included them in our slide here. So we have a Linktree, we have website, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook account. And then I also just want to just kind of point folks to additional resources. So there's a lot of good resources here that you're welcome to reference after our presentation that includes more information on experiential learning and place-based pedagogy that I would recommend for folks to look over and kind of get some more information about. So we have about 3 minutes left. So I did want to offer some time for questions, discussion, anything else that is on everyone's mind. So welcome everybody to share any last comments or questions before we close.